showing off difference and culture. Make love key, hospitality, sweet, sweet, sweet. When they hear the rhythm, spirits from the broken reefs, join your voices together. Yeah, how they sing. Oh my Andra, she make, 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 and Russian she make. Oh my Andra, she make, 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 and Russian she make. Oh yeah, Lord, 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 right. The broken reefs, join your voices together. Yeah, how they sing. Red day, my day. No sound comes from drink still can't stay. Bush for my
The Bahamas and Botswana have agreed to a mutually beneficial partnership. Prime Minister Philip Davis meeting in the sidelines of CHOGM 2022 in Rwanda with the President of Botswana. The Bahamas has agreed to assist in the development of tourism in Botswana, and in exchange, Botswana will help the Bahamas with technical and other support in developing livestock farming in the Bahamas. Botswana has declared that it has the world's best beef. They're also known for their diamond industry. Both leaders have invited each other to visit their home countries.
In April, the Bahamas passed the world's first climate change and carbon market initiatives bill, positioning the country to benefit from the trading of carbon credits. But how do you benefit from the launch of a carbon credits market? Tune in to your favorite TV station or OPM's Facebook page for a live town hall on the Carbon Market Initiatives Bill, Wednesday, July 6, 8:30 p.m., where we'll address your questions and more. The Climate Change and Carbon Market Initiatives Bill, making strides, empowering Bahamians.
Good morning, media colleagues and those joining us via the stream. It is a pleasure to welcome you to the Office of the Prime Minister's weekly press briefing. I want to say happy Independence, as this is probably the last time I'll see you before Monday. Happy Independence, Bahamas, and to those that are in the room, I hope that you celebrate really big this weekend. We had a lot of things that happened this week, and we're going to delve into some of that during this press briefing. And to further welcome you and our guests, I'm going to introduce Press Secretary Clint Watson.
Thank you, Jillian. Thank you, Jillian. And welcome to this week's briefing. It's good to have all of you joining us, whether you're watching live by television or streaming. Thank you for being with us. We are always delighted to give you an update on what the Davis administration is doing and the work that we are doing on behalf of the Bahamian people to be able to give you an account of that work and to be able to explain and take questions, bring clarification on your concerns and issues. I think I want to start with something I believe is so important to so many people in our country. And it connects to what took place in Parliament yesterday in the House of Assembly with the historic passing to the amendment of the Evidence Act. No doubt if you've been a part of the Bahamas for the past few years, since 2019, you would understand the importance of this bill and what it means to so many people, particularly those with family and relatives in Grand Bahama and Abaco. We all know that based on what was law and what is present law and will be changed, if a person dies or is missing as a result of whatever reason, there is nothing that can be done until after 7 years, when they can get a death certificate. It's been perhaps one of the most difficult things for families in Abaco and Grand Bahama because they can't bring closure to loved ones who were missing as a result of Dorian. The stories were horrendous when you hear about people talking about losing loved ones who they were holding on to, and the strong storm surges, and watching families wiped away, watching your children washed away from you and separated from you. It's something that I don't think any human being should have to face. Coupled with that is the challenge, obviously, of having laws that are not in your favor, that tell you that you have to wait 7 years before you can bring that kind of closure, or before you can conduct the affairs of your people, you must wait 7 years. Davis administration Prime Minister Davis in particular promised when he was leader of opposition that needed to change. Matter of fact, he spoke about in the House of Assembly yesterday of making several interventions to try and get the previous administration to make amendments to the law so that people can have their affairs dealt with. He was unsuccessful. And so it was one of the main promises he made that should he be elected prime minister, he would address. He said so, and he's done so. And yesterday, the amendment was made to that bill, which will impact, no doubt, scores of people and bring relief to people. It is a real, tangible thing when your people feel as if their administration and their government is listening to them. We want to present to you right now a video which brings it home to you, and you can understand why this was so important. With a young lady, you've heard us talk about her. In my former job as a journalist, I interviewed her countless times, and it was her story that gripped me so much that wanted me to be a part of change so that people like her would not have to suffer. And it was a wonderful experience being able to see her and meet her yesterday, because we did our interviews via internet. But to be able to see her face to face and see the relief on her face when that bill was passed yesterday, words don't come to describe it. But we've put together this video to help most of you, and all of you hopefully, understand the significance of this. Please take a look at it.
This is my room right now.
Like her home in McLeanstown, East End, Grand Bahama, Baronet Thomas's life was stripped down to its foundation when Hurricane Dorian swept through the northern Bahamas back in 2019.
I will do anything to get them back. I will do anything to get them back.
Her husband and 3 children, casualties of the strongest storm on record to hit the Bahamas. Her pain matched by a web of complications that placed her life on hold.
The government, they would not release the death certificates to me because right now they're actually still have my husband listed as missing in my family. And we all know that this was a disaster. I will never see my family here on earth again.
New legislation passed in the House of Assembly Wednesday addresses the issue that has blocked insurance benefit payments, stripped away homes, and blocked death certificates bound by a 7-year wait time as prescribed by law when persons are missing. The Evidence Amendments Act will provide for the presumption of death where a person dies in circumstances of peril without the exorbitant wait. The Prime Minister says the proposal dates back to the early aftermath of Hurricane Dorian, when the former administration concluded that the presumption of death would be left to the coroner's court, which in his legal estimation provided no remedy for the issuance of a death certificate. This, all while promised DNA matches to confirm identities remained undone. And while nothing will take away their grief, the legislation does provide a ray of hope after some of the darkest days for weary survivors.
2 years have passed, and this is specific for me. This is a Dorian issue now for me, and the 2 years has passed, so this takes effect today. So persons, once the law is passed,
I can move on in terms of not having to fight people. I could be within myself, and I could take care of me now in terms of mentally and understanding that it's soon going to be time for you to grieve. Like, I haven't grieved properly yet for my family. I haven't done that yet because I was so busy being in your face and everybody else's face and trying to keep my family alive. So it's now more of me taking care of me. And I know for others, it's like taking care of them and understanding, listen, your loved one is gone. It's now time to take care of you. The fight, one part of the fight is over with. You have the government support. You have a lot of people that's supporting you. So it's time to take whatever you've gotten from them and move forward in the best way you know how to. I've never ever seen something like this happen. I've never seen it, not in the Bahamas. I've never seen it. If it has, I'm not aware of it. But the confidence level that I have in this administration, I mean, it's on an all-time high, and I want you guys to keep it there. I want you to keep it there because I'm expecting greater things than what you've done yesterday. If you could actually pass a law like this, which persons were saying, I went to lawyers upon lawyers, and they're saying that's law. That's law. There's nothing that I can do. That is law. It's 7 years. To witness 7 years turning into 2 years? Where's that? I mean, I'm expecting, like, you guys, this administration, you call it the Davis-Cooper administration. The Davis-Cooper administration, you guys set yourself up for greater. Because if this happened, this law here has been amended. I mean, there's a lot of things that you guys can do. A lot of things. And it just put me to question, what else can you do? And I know that I'm gonna win the war.
Keeping you in the know. This is OPM Press Now.
Not just Barnett, but all of the other survivors who have to deal with this for the rest of their life, that at least their government is able to bring some level of relief and closure for them and so many others as they go through this period. You know, it's so easy when you're not in Abaco or Grand Bahama to think life moves on and it's great. And I'm always reminded when I see people, and I'm always reminded in the back of my mind that these people live with this for the rest of their lives. And whatever we can do to make it easier for them, that's our role. Not just whether it's government or private sector, as human beings and humanity, wherever we can take away pain and hurt from people and bring some level of peace and satisfaction, that's our service. And that's what we have been elected to do. That's what we have been called to this office to do, is to serve people and to bring relief to our Bahamians every day. And so our hearts and our thoughts and prayers go with them. And if we can enjoy that smile that she gave at the end of that piece, to know that we can bring a smile on her face and other faces, then we are satisfied that our job is getting done. And whether it's carried on the front page of newspapers or not, as it's on most third pages on one and none at all on the other, we're happy that we're getting the job done. And we will continue to work on behalf of the Bahamian people. Thank you, Barnett, for that. We want to begin talking about some of the issues that many of you have asked about. I'm going to call the Minister of Transport and Housing, the Honorable JoBeth Colby, to update us on an initiative that took place today, which has been an issue for so long. She'll talk about it and why this is a significant step in the right direction. And I know there are questions you may have for her in her portfolio. She'll take those as well. So without further ado, the Minister of Transport and Housing, the Honorable JoBeth Colby Davis.
Good morning. Can I see beyond these microphones? Just barely. Good morning, everyone, and I'm excited to have been invited here today. Thank you, Press Secretary Watson, so that I can brief the public on an initiative that took place under the Ministry of Transport and Housing, the Road Traffic Department this morning. So leading up to this, we had a number of consultations and meetings with the taxi union executives and the livery union, just to kind of get an idea of the industry, how it's functioning, and what are some of the present issues, and how we could provide some necessary solutions. And from taking the role as Minister of Transport, I was met with a number of taxi drivers as I traveled throughout my day, as I come back in the country, just querying whether we would remove the moratorium and assist persons who were presently leasing. And what was really concerning to me was some of the stories that I heard leading up to us coming to the decision that we had made. And I'll just share one of them. When a taxi driver came to see me, and he was extremely emotional because as soon as I got in, I asked Cabinet to approve the removing of the moratorium and the issuance of some 300 plates to a large list that I met from Road Traffic Department of applicants, and also some names that we had received from the taxi union president and the livery union president. And he was emotional because during COVID, none of them really made any income to take home. And a lot of them are the breadwinners for their families, and many of them have children that is presently taking on tertiary education, and they are providing that funding for their children to develop and provide them with educational degrees. And he was excited when the country had opened back up and he started to work again. He was down at the Arawak Key with some guests from the hotel that he had just picked up and just starting back to make some money. And while he was waiting on his guests, he was faced with his vehicle being presently parked where he left it, but having no plates. And so the job that he thought he would make a certain amount from, it was cut in half because he had to ask one of his taxi colleagues to take his guests back to the hotel because the owner had unscrewed the plates off of his vehicle while he was out carrying out a job because he was unable to meet some of the requests of the amount or the usual amount that he would pay in lease. And I think he probably wasn't answering the calls because he just didn't have it and he was just getting back to work. And there's a number of other stories that I've heard since becoming the Minister of Transport. I consulted with my cabinet colleagues and I spoke to them about some of the concerns that I thought that it was causing in our economy. And so through consultation with them and consultation with my team down at the Road Traffic Department, we decided to try to bring some resolution to this present situation and bring some controls back to the industry in a way that it's managed and persons are able to be empowered as the law has been created to empower Bahamians and create entrepreneurs and have persons to be self-employed. And so we wanted to lift a lot of the burdens that many of them were carrying. So we did an assessment. We spoke with the union and they advised us that there were maybe a number of persons who were not captured in the first issuance. And so we went back to cabinet to ask if we could remedy some of the scenarios that still presently exist, provide some relief through granting persons their own plates and giving them that opportunity to take their financing home and continue to support their family. And so today we started our exercise where we invited all taxi and livery drivers who have been in the industry, who is presently in the industry. We have many of them who have been working for 10, 15, 20 years, and we've invited them down to Loyola Hall. We've set up a substation of the Road Traffic Department, and so at Loyola Hall, they're able to do every single thing. Fill out an application, be vetted, have their cars inspected, and then go and proceed to our cashiers to make the necessary payments and proceed with having their plates collected. And where there are issues presented, we do have a table set up for the case-by-case scenarios, us to make documentation of all what they presently have on them, and then we will sit with the team afterwards to begin to find ways and solutions for those who may not have gotten solutions today at the stadium, at the Loyola Hall. They'll also be there again tomorrow, and they're presently on site from the hours of 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. and they're assisting everyone who comes. So even if they don't have the same case as which we have requested, which is those who are leasing, we still want to hear from them and look at their case, look at the scenario, and see if there's a way that we can provide some solutions. And so this is a start to bring in resolution to a sector of society that has been requesting it for some time, and to find ways that we can regularize and properly organize and manage the taxi and livery industry. And so that's what's happening today.
Initiative being done on the Family Islands?
Yes, so as it relates to the Family Islands, we had applications that was sat at the Road Traffic Department for some time, and we all have officers in charge of the department as well that's situated on each Family Island. And so we were able to started working on a list from Exuma. We started with a list from Abaco, Grand Bahama, and Eleuthera. And so we're carrying out the same process, but it's a smaller group in there on the Family Island, so it was quite easier to just go to road traffic and see what they have on their profile for persons and start assisting where we can there.
So to be clear, the government is giving licenses to taxi drivers who have been leasing for a very long time.
Who's in the industry, yes.
You noted that this initiative was being done to lift the burden of the individuals working in this industry. I know another concern with individuals working in public transportation was the fares, given the inflation that we're really dealing with.
Yeah.
Can you say what the cabinet's position is on increasing the fares?
Well, we were discussing that for some time, a few months now, and because that takes the task of that is to really have a balance in that approach, because we know generally the area of society that depends on the public bus transportation, and so where we are now is the cabinet has agreed for a relief package to be presented by the Ministry of Finance, and so I have just sent the last bit of documents that were requested from the Financial Secretary and the Minister of Finance, and they are reviewing, and then they should be presenting me with the relief package, what we can provide now to get us through this period, and then reconsider discussions related to the increase in fares.
How soon that relief package would be?
I am hoping that it's before the end of this month.
And you know how many people would be impacted by that?
That one is going to focus directly on the public bus transportation. I think there's quite a few tiers to that, and so a good number.
And so when will the increase in fares be reconsidered by cabinet?
I am hoping to re-engage that discussion probably in another 6 months. Yeah, so the relief package I hope would carry us through the period until I'm able to get back to a place where I can present more options that they would be able to consider.
And no price tag on that yet, you said?
No.
Where do things stand in terms of fulfilling this long-term goal of introducing a unified bus system?
We're actually on a good path to getting some clarity on how we will manage our bus transportation. My team at Transport has been on a trip, a fact-finding trip. We went to Atlanta and we met with executives of MATA, and we also went to New York and met with executives of MTA, and both of them quite very busy bus transportation systems, and they provided with a lot of information and a lot of guidance. And so we will be discussing more options at town halls, but preparing as well to present a scope that to the cabinet that they will consider for a unified, more controlled busing program.
Gears a bit. I know when you first came to office, you announced intentions to build a new general post office. I think you said in February that should take about 18 months. Where do we stand on the construction of that?
I spoke briefly with the Prime Minister and a few of my other cabinet colleagues on moving forward with that. We think we may have 1 or 2 options, but I'm just waiting for replies back. I'm hoping to have something to the state on that maybe in another 2 months, because we need to get the project started as soon as possible.
While on the topic of post offices, is there an update on the relocation of the general post office from the town center?
Well, I think that was kind of the same question. We're looking to build a permanent location for them as opposed to just relocate them to another area, because it just would be the same kind of issues we're having now.
You announced a few weeks ago that the government would ask individuals living in the Dome City in Spring City, Abaco to vacate. The DRA chairman said that the government hopes that they would be gone from these domes by the end of the summer. Can you provide an update on how that's going? Because you said that you wouldn't leave these folks homeless.
Yes, well, you know, Jasper, I always thought you listened to me every time I spoke. Well, I answered and I gave an update yesterday, actually, in the House of Assembly, where I spoke on the DRA partnering with Social Service and the Department of Housing. I think that there's a team presently in Abaco that will be issuing letters to all of the persons that's continually occupying domes there to provide them with information. And that letter will tell them a contact that they will be able to reach out to, who's situated in the DRA's office in Abaco, that contact and social service will assist with the relocation of them. And I think social service will be providing an update on the amount that they have allocated to assist those persons with relocation. I am hoping that I can demolish the domes in August and begin working towards, we already have a site plan created by the Department of Housing, and I think that property can hold about 11 homes. And so we're hoping to start working on that very soon.
That was going to be my follow-up questions. Abaco residents have been saying that since Dorian, there's been a bit of a housing crisis on the island. Can you maybe dive a bit deeper into those initiatives to provide housing?
Okay, so we have 10 of our homes with walls up already, so hopefully they'll be starting on the roofs very soon. That will be an expanded project based on, I don't know if you recall in the budget contribution when I spoke about the 2 projects that I had gotten from former Prime Minister Ingram. One of them was a massive housing project with a big plot of land that can take a good number of homes. And so we have persons now working towards, the architect is now working towards re-looking at the property and seeing if it's still in the state where it was years past when that was being considered. My team has already visited and they feel that we are in a 95 percentile state to use that property. If that is the case, we will be proceeding with a massive construction project on that property, and I'll discuss more about that when I get all of the information from the various teams that have taken that trip and working towards providing me with an update on how we could proceed. And I'm hoping to start that as soon as possible when I have all the information in front of me.
Sorry. Quick question. Can we get an update on the penalties involving Carnival Cruise and illegal dumping?
Well, that is being managed when it comes to illegal dumping. The Port Department does their review and assessment, and then they provide information to the DEPP. The DEPP has to work along with the Attorney General's office to actually come together on a form of penalty that's legal and acceptable. And so the DEPP would actually have to provide, when it comes to the penalties, what's the next steps, because they would be guiding that conversation.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Minister. Jovette Colby-Davis, for that update on transport and housing. We appreciate it, and thank you for your work that you're doing. We're now going to move into an update on Works. I know since we've been doing these pressures, we haven't had the Minister of Works, so this is his first appearance. So we're excited to have him to talk about some of what's happening in Ministry of Works and the portfolios that come under his purview. And so we're going to be happy now to invite the Honorable Alfred Sayers, Minister of Works, to come and provide us a quick snapshot and overview of what's going on, any developments, and to, of course, take your questions that I'm sure you have, and especially the 2 questions that I'm sure Jasper has. Minister comes.
Good afternoon. Currently, the Ministry of Works is engaged in a very aggressive program to deal with a number of infrastructural concerns, one of which is flooding. We are now in the hurricane season, and for the first time, there is a line item in our budget to roughly $2.2 million to deal with flood mitigation. In addition to what has always been done, which is the drilling of wells, and these wells are about approximately 120 to 150 feet in depth. We will be piloting 600 feet wells. This will be the first time. To my knowledge, the only other 600 feet wells we have is the Water and Sewage Corporation at the water treatment plant on Gladstone Road. And it is that well which is the receptacle of the waste from Bahamas. This will be a new feature. Secondly, on the existing well, we will be installing VACRO valves. These are valves which will solve one of the problems that exists in some of the wells, which often have a backup. When with high tide, you have water coming up through the wells. The function of the Vacro valve is to prevent that from happening, but at the same time allow water to go down the well. We have, thirdly, we have ordered a number of pumps. The ministry currently doesn't have any pumps, so we have always relied on contractors. Well, previously the ministry did have some pumps, but currently the reliance is on contractors. We are acquiring a quantity of pumps now. They've been ordered. Payment certificates have been issued. We're waiting now for them to arrive. They're being imported. Coupled with the pumps, we will be, we've also ordered some Tiger dams. These are dams, makeshift dams, which can be located in fields, in playgrounds, in other places, vacant property, where water which is pumped could be directed to these dams. They will hold the water, which enables us to move the water off the streets and out of people's yards very quickly, and then the water from the dam could be repurposed. Another measure we are taking is we will be piloting in Pinewood Gardens a new method in terms of flood mitigation, which is a bricks system. And this is a system developed in the Netherlands, where you can take a basketball court or some recreational space, excavate and install this Vacro system beneath the surface, and through culverts direct the water which will go down into that bricks system, and the water could be then channeled either to the sea or to a wetland area, or utilized as a hydrant for firefighting when needed. And the top of the surface will be resurfaced, and it will continue to have the function that it had prior to the excavation. That is, it could still be a basketball court or some other recreational space. So the issue of flood mitigation, we will be deploying a number of measures which we've never used before. And of course, the long-term solution is the work that we are doing in terms of revising the building code, the Planning Subdivision Act, so that we can stop this practice of building on wetlands. We also, we're currently drafting a land use policy, which we will begin some public consultation within the next several months. And the land use policy will ensure that certain areas are no-build areas in New Providence, but not just only in New Providence, but other family islands as well, so that we can have a more rational approach to building the physical environment and more respect for wetlands and environmentally sensitive areas, and that way have more resilience in the built environment. The other area of current focus for us is how to deal with the question of energy and power. And first, in terms of the short-term measures being taken, it is projected that the summer, which is the peak period of power consumption, there are a number of contingency measures being taken. The peak period where we are running air-conditioned systems in our homes, in our offices, and so on, the consumption is usually up to 280 megs of power. I've asked BPL to prepare a contingency plan, and you would recall I laid it out during my budget contribution. BPL is acquiring, and in fact has already required, some of the additional generators so that it will have a capacity during this summer to serve New Providence up to 200 megs of power, which will represent a surplus above what historically has been the peak consumption requirement. And this is to ensure that there is redundancy in the system, and during the projected highest consumption period, the demand could be met by BPL. On the medium, long-term measures, the government has made a commitment in the Blueprint for Change in the National Development Plan to diversify the power generation. Currently, we spend over $1 billion importing fuel and petroleum products in the Bahamas, and the government has committed that by 2030, the generation of power will constitute that renewable sources of energy will constitute 30% of the power generation. That is very ambitious. So we have engaged McKinsey, which is a global advisory firm, to prepare the technical specifications for us to realize that objective. A number of entities have expressed interest in assisting and collaborating with the Bahamas in the provision of a more diversified power generation, and also to improve the power distribution infrastructure. But we needed to have the specifications, or what we call requests for proposal. We have received a preliminary set of specifications, and those have been sent out to some of the companies which have expressed an interest. And the projection is to have proposals, some of which will consist of LNG as an interim, a cleaner form of energy, as an interim measure, some solar, and other represent other forms of renewable power generation. We will review the proposals in response to the specifications that we are distributing and see what makes sense in terms of what is the most commercially feasible proposals that will enable the Bahamas to incorporate renewable and cleaner forms of energy in the power generation. So as these proposals are reviewed, we will be informing the public of the process, but that is the process to date. And the committee, which I currently head, is a cabinet subcommittee, and that committee comprises the Attorney General, the Minister of the Environment and Natural Resources, the Financial Secretary, and also the Minister of Financial Services. So those are the members who comprise the Cabinet Energy Subcommittee. With respect to Water and Sewerage Corporation, we have given a very clear mandate that we need to improve the infrastructure of waste treatment in the Bahamas. And about 6 years now ago, the government borrowed about $15 million over a 2 or 3 year period from the National Insurance Board. And those funds were utilized to and intended to establish a waste treatment plant. And that plant is located on Gladstone Road. It is about 80% completed. And for the past 4 years, it's really been just basically lying fallow. It's really a most extraordinary thing. When I went last year and I saw it, I could not believe it, because one of the biggest generators I saw in my life is right at the front, and it had never been commissioned. The turbines had never been turned on, and it was really, and I would invite you to visit it, it's really quite extraordinary. $15 million on the ground on Gladstone Road. We have directed the Ministry of, and also let me just point out that this facility is intended to provide the waste disposal, which it currently does for Bahamas, for the southern part of New Providence and some of the western part of New Providence, various subdivisions. And currently, you have waste from Bahamas just being deposited in this 600 feet well at the facility. And what is intended, the facility was to take the waste and to treat it. And in the treatment process, develop a new product. And that is called reuse water. And that reuse water would give the Water and Sewerage Corporation a new commodity. and that is the reused water could be used to water golf courses, lawns, and so on. And the potable water that is currently being used to water golf courses and other people's lawns and so on, that water could be used for human consumption and bring in a new stream of revenue to the Water and Sewerage Corporation. Since our directive to the new board, they have engaged a company, Hatch Incorporated, and they have come in and they have done an assessment of the water treatment plant to determine what needs to happen to get it fully completed, operational, and to design the works for the completion of the project, and then to supervise the tendering to get a contractor, and then to serve as the contract manager of the project. That project is underway, and I will be meeting with the chairman of Water and Sewerage Corporation within the next week to get a briefing on this project. In addition to the waste treatment plant, there's also work being done to scope out the rehabilitation and improvement of the waste treatment plant that in eastern New Providence. As you know, from time to time as you pass the Paradise Island Bridge, there's a waste treatment facility there, and that covers most of the eastern New Providence. It is a very old waste treatment facility. Sometimes you have backup and overflow of sewage and so on. So there is a technical team reviewing that waste treatment facility, and will be proposing the rehabilitation, modernization of that waste treatment facility. The third major thrust of the Water and Sewerage Corporation is to rehabilitate the water distribution system. And as you see in many of the projects in New Providence for the paving of the road, as well as the redevelopment as currently being done in the Village Road area, the road work and the improvement of the roadway infrastructure has to be preceded by the upgrade, improvement of the water mains. We see it also through Boyd Road and a number of other areas where you have trenching. And I want to thank the Bahamian public for the patience, the understanding that as we improve the infrastructure, there is this period of inconvenience and disruption. But we cannot really improve the road unless the infrastructure of water and power is improved. That is, changing the pipes to from some of which are old pipes. We have to upgrade them to larger pipes because they're serving more people, and also in terms of durability, to avoid leakage and so on like that. We have to improve that infrastructure. So that process is underway, and a parallel process is underway in our family islands. And in the family islands, we have, on many of our islands, compatriots have to basically buy water on a weekly basis from water trucks, and then have those water put in their wells or cisterns and so on in their yard. What we're committed to by the Blueprint for Change is to expand the delivery of potable water to people's homes. So you will see in Exuma, going to Baratari, where we currently do not have portable water distribution to people's homes. You will see as the road work is being undertaken, you have the installation of pipes for the distribution of portable water. Similarly, in Cat Island, you have the same process underway. And in many of our other islands, the commitment is to get portable water into people's homes. So those processes are underway, distribution, improvement of the infrastructure, and to ensure that we have the widest possible distribution of water. This time of the year in the Ministry of Works is you find that most of our architects, our engineers are traveling throughout the country because we have a very short time in which to repair schools. So we have hundreds of schools, and you have the technical teams of the ministry going into these schools, scoping the work, most of which have already been scoped and quantified, and engaging contractors, and then supervising the work of the various contractors, and holding the contractors to a very strict time frame so that by September the schools are ready. And of course, as you're doing repair, you uncover as you remove the surface and so on that it may be more complex than it would have been first scope. So it's a very dynamic process which may require modifications and so on like that. So we have also, in addition to the schools, major other infrastructural work. And one, of course, is roads. We have major road project in Exuma, in Abaco, in Long Island, in Andros. The road is critical because we're dealing with connectivity, economic development, and so on. So we have contractors throughout our major islands and some of the smaller islands engage in road work. And again, we have a team that supervising these various contractors, and I was in Exuma this past Thursday and Friday, and we have major road work being undertaken there. Some of the contractors of these various projects have established asphalt plants on these specific islands to help to facilitate their work. And in some of the contracts, we have challenges because of the global logistical challenges. we have to bring in aggregate. For example, aggregate coming in from Jamaica, it takes a long time. And in some of the islands, like Long Island, the boat may not be able to get to the dock. You have to wait for high tide and so on. So there are a number of logistical challenges that some of these contractors have to deal with in terms of supply issues, and therefore contracts which ought to have been completed within 12 months, 18 months, end up taking a longer period of time because of this global logistical challenges. In addition to the roads, we have a number of major challenges with our bridges. We have several bridges that we have to rebuild, one of which is the glass window bridge in Eleuthera. It's a major connector, and also a major historical touristic site where the Atlantic and Caribbean Sea meet. In fact, people travel to Eleuthera to experience this natural wonder. And we are designing a new bridge for the glass window bridge. And we have a design, and we will be having town meetings in Eleuthera so that we can present the concepts to the community, get the feedback of the community so that the local community's views and opinions could be factored in. In Andros, we have several bridges that have been designed. You have the Stafford Creek Bridge, and we also have the Fresh Creek Bridge. One is 15 million, the other is 30 million. And that bridge, those bridges, we will be having meetings in Andros within the next several months to show the design. And there are a number of factors that we take into consideration with our bridges. One is many of the bridges, as you travel throughout the country, you will see that the foundation of the bridge and culverts are in the water. Some of them have slits where marine life can travel through, but they're in the water, and therefore they're having some effect on the marine life and the free flow of the water. We will use, and we are using, the Angel Creek Bridge, and I know some of you would have traveled with us when we went to Abaco for the commissioning of the Angel Creek Bridge. That's a bridge where it accomplishes a number of things. It reflects the Bahamas' commitment to environmental sustainability by not building in the creek, which was a previous practice, but building on both sides of the creek and constructing the span from one end of the creek to the next, and having a sufficient height so that boaters, bone fishers, fishing persons can navigate under the bridge. And we're so pleased because now people are going under the bridge and they're catching crawfish, they're catching fish. In other words, the marine life is coming back again. And we also have boaters going under the bridge. So economic activity is facilitated, travel is facilitated, and also the marine life can breathe again, you know. So the same ideas and guiding principles will have been applied in the design of the Fresh Creek Bridge and also the Stafford Creek Bridge in Andros. On Friday, I looked at the ferry bridge, which connects Little Exuma with Big Exuma. And when I went under, at least as much as I could go, right, without going in the water, and you can see the Spalding concrete, you could see the exposed steel, and so on. So clearly, and of course, the technical people had already reported from their investigation that we need a new bridge to connect Little Exuma with Big Exuma. So we're in the process of designing a new bridge to replace the ferry dock bridge. Similarly, in Barratari, another critical connector, that bridge, we are in the design stage for a new bridge for Barratari. So we see then also in terms of the bridges within our country, we are committed to improving this infrastructure. Just to share with you, I led a delegation to the United States, as you know, because we issued a release. This was 3 weeks ago, and we met with about 15 U.S. congresspersons and senators, and they're all persons who were chairs of the Appropriation Committee in the U.S. Congress and the U.S. Senate. And we made a very strong case, I believe, for grant funding because we realize the infrastructure I've described and that I'm describing will involve hundreds of millions of dollars. And we are faced with an existential threat, these hurricanes, which are becoming more severe. And we know in an economy where we lost in the past 2 years over $10 billion, having been closed down due to the pandemic, and prior to that in 2019, having lost $3.4 billion in 3 days, September 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, in Abaco and Grand Bahama. And with a national debt that is almost equivalent to the GDP of our country, we need to maximize our access to grant funding. And that was the purpose of that delegation to Washington. We made the case to our closest friend and ally, the United States legislative body. And we are optimistic that that initiative will bear fruit, because the work I have described, we need to complete, we need to accomplish as quickly as possible. So there's much more that we are doing in terms of the work with respect to our entrepreneurs in the creative space, that is the straw market, and incentivizing. As you know, we have opened the straw market having been closed for over a year. And the main market on Bay Street is open on a staggered basis. And we're very pleased it's open, and we hope that the Ministry of Health will guide us. Well, they will guide us in terms of being open with everybody for 7 days a week. But it's still, we're still in the pandemic, and therefore we're being guided by the Ministry of Health. The straw market at Fort Charlotte is being rebuilt, and that work has already been scoped, and the contractor has been mobilized, and therefore you will see in relatively within 9 months, you will see a new infrastructure. And I thank the vendors for their cooperation with us in building a new straw market. Also, the straw market at Fort Fincastle, it will also undergo a major rehabilitation. And the rehabilitation will not only be the straw market, it will be the water tower. It will transform this historic space, but not only the historic fort, but also the surrounding community of McCullough Corner, because this is a very important community. And as we rehabilitate the Fort Fincastle, it will be in partnership with the surrounding community around the straw market, the Fort Fincastle. We have been in consultation with Atlantis and also with Bahamas with respect to the straw market in both of those resorts. And I want to thank our corporate partners for their partnership in maintaining and assisting with the infrastructure of the markets in Bahamas, and also at Atlantis. I want to thank the chairperson and the board of the Bridge Authority. The Bridge Authority, I'm very pleased with how they responded to Sir Sidney Poitier's memorial service, and the kind of display and the tastefulness of the display for the entrance of the bridge at the time of his death, and also during the celebration, the memorial celebration of his life. At the Bridge Authority, the authority has undertaken a search, and I'm advised that the search has resulted in the appointment of a human resource manager, as well as a CFO for the authority, and this is to strengthen the operation and management. And I know that the outstanding matters with the union, and they have been making, I'm advised, making progress in addressing some of those outstanding matters, some of which were long-standing. Also, to mention on the industrial relations front, similarly, the Water and Sewerage Corporation, from 2017, I think, you've had outstanding industrial agreements which were not renewed. And I know they have renewed the one from 2017 to 2019, and they're now in the process of renewing one that will come up to this contemporary period. The one outstanding issue that existed with the industrial agreement at the Water and Sewerage Corporation with the line staff was the outsourcing. I think it's Article 27 of the industrial agreement, and I'm advised that that has been settled, and that outstanding monies for the managers or members of the management union has also been settled. Similarly with BPL, they've been very constructive engagement and treating with the unions. Unions are critical partners in our enterprises, and therefore it is very important that they're treated as partners in the process. And finally, we have the town planning, and we also have the town planning appeal. And certainly with respect to the town planning board, they've been working very aggressively to move the process along. They play a critical role in economic development because we need to move the processing of applications for projects as quickly as possible and as responsibly as possible. There are also a number of appeals which have been outstanding for a while, and I know the chair of the appeal board and the appeal board are now scheduling hearings of these outstanding appeals. I think in a nutshell that covers the major...
Questions? Sure, go ahead. Questions.
Minister Sachs, thank you for that in-depth overview. My question is about the BPL CEO last month indicated that there's going to be an increase in the fuel surcharge. Can I get your thoughts on this?
Okay, well, three things. One is the entire world, and I'm talking about the entire world unless you have an oil field in your backyard, right, is faced with the escalating price of fuel and this extraordinary demand which has been disrupted by the war in Ukraine. And also we've had the complication of the sanctions on Russia. And also we have existing prohibition against Venezuela, which is in our region. So as a result of these developments, you've had a global disruption in the supply of fuel and the escalation of cost. We see it in the United States, we see it in Canada, we see it throughout our region, and we also see it in the Bahamas. So that is a fact, an incontrovertible fact. The second consideration is that in 2020, BPL formed 4 hedging contracts. Those hedging contracts were formed at a time when petroleum prices were fairly stable, and they were intended to insulate the Bahamas BPL from a certain level of volatility in the price of fuel. At that time, it was not anticipated that there would have been a war in Ukraine, and also that there would have been sanctions imposed on Russia, which is a major supplier for the European market and other markets throughout the world. And then, of course, you have, as a result of the pandemic and other factors, the disruption in the global stream of commerce, especially on the logistical side. The hedge and the last contract will expire in 2024. So while we still have a hedge, it does not cover the full scope of the increases that have occurred. And whenever you have a situation like this, and the Prime Minister has made it very clear that the government has a commitment in law under the Electricity Act, as well as the clear policy of the government, is whatever happens to protect the vulnerable segments of the Bahamian society. It means, therefore, that what the hedge does not cover, the government will have to pay. In fact, the government is the backstop for the hedge. And therefore, to fulfill the statutory obligation of protecting vulnerable consumers, and that means the residential consumers, the government really has to provide the backstop. The Prime Minister, as the Minister of Finance for the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, has made it abundantly clear that the government is committed to providing a level of state protection for vulnerable consumers in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. So that is as much as I can say. I can tell you that we're working very aggressively to see how we can limit our dependence on fossil fuel and incorporate renewable sources of energy in the power generation, and ask that we all, it's not just the government, but all of us really have to conserve and take every reasonable measure that we each can, as patriotic citizens of this country, to conserve.
So the government won't do anything to stop that fuel charge going up next month then?
Pardon?
So will the government do anything to stop, because you talked about protecting the vulnerable, will the government do anything to stop that fuel surcharge going up next month?
Well, there are two things. One is you're talking about fuel at the pump for your car. Oh, okay. With respect to BPL, BPL cannot pass on increases, cannot absorb increases, right? So there are only two options. One is to pass it on to the consumer, or for the government to provide a subvention to pay. And the Prime Minister has made it very clear that the government is committed to providing a measure of safeguard for the consumer, given the fact that in many homes, people's lives have been disrupted through unemployment, through death, through illness as a result of the pandemic. We still have a lot of climate refugees in our country, people who were displaced by Hurricane Dorian. In my own family, I have, about 50 family members, nieces and nephews and brother and sister, who have been impacted in Grand Bahama and in Abaco and have not been able to get back to where they were in 2019. And my experience is not unique. This is a reality within our country. And as I travel, it's one thing when you stay here in Nassau, but as you travel throughout this country, you will see that people's lives have been upended, especially in Grand Bahama. And the other thing I want to emphasize is that the Ministry of Works is a first responder. We think in terms of first responders as medical personnel. But after a hurricane, the first people out to clear the road, to fix the electrical wires that are down, to repair the water main, these are employees of the Ministry of Works, especially in our family islands where you don't have the abundance of contractors we have here in Nassau and in Grand Bahama. And as I listen to my colleagues share their experience with me of going out in the communities in Abaco where their homes were destroyed, but they had to walk over dead bodies in order to clear the road, in order to repair different aspects of the public infrastructure. And I sat, and colleagues in Abaco, I could never forget, I don't want to call his name, but one of the persons who was in the leadership, as he's explaining to me, and he points out that 3 of our staff members in Abaco are homeless, living in a trailer owned by the Ministry of Works. And he bursts out crying, sharing, testifying to the horror that they went through and are still going through. So this is a very, very challenging time. And then when you think about the children who have been out of school going on 2 years, and to see their family, their parents, upended, unemployed. You go into communities and you see the whole house washed right off the foundation. So we are in a very, 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 very challenging time in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And we have to be sensitive that so many of our compatriots are hurting, are challenged, and trying to get their bearing. And the Prime Minister, who travels around more than any of us to these different family islands, has a sense of what the Bahamian people are going through. And it's reflected in his uncompromising commitment to not lose sight of the vulnerable.
Thank you, Minister. Appreciate you. Thank you, Minister Sayers, for giving us a comprehensive update. As you can see, ministry covers a lot of ground and covers a lot of ministry. And the minister, you've made up your time for not being here with us. You've given us more than enough. Thank you, sir. You're dismissed. Thank you, Minister Sayers, for being with us. We want to obviously highlight our vendors for today and then talk about one of the independence things that are happening tomorrow that you can celebrate independence with. But if you have any other questions, I want to be able to take those from you now for the administration. I'll take those real quick before we introduce our vendors. Let's begin. Any questions? Leandra Roll, the Tribune. Hi, Leah.
Hi, Mr. Watson. I just wanted you to respond. In the House yesterday, the former Prime Minister said how he didn't receive an invitation to the Commissioner handover ceremony earlier this week. And he was claiming that all invitations now falls under the remit of the Office of the Prime Minister. I just wanted you to respond to his claims that he didn't receive an invitation. I guess why didn't he?
Invitations don't fall under the remit of the Office of Prime Minister, they fall in the Cabinet Office. That procedure has not changed. All of our invitations that we've received have come from the Cabinet Office. And I don't know what he's talking about. I can't say he didn't get one or he did get one. I know that the Cabinet Office is responsible for any invites. So is the Royal Bahamas Police Force. They were dealing with invites themselves to the event. I can say that I did see the former Prime Ministers there. Former Prime Minister Christie was there, former Prime Minister Hubert Ingram was there. I just find it strange that he would not have been invited. But I can't confirm. We don't deal with invitations, I'm sorry. And we did not deal with invitations for that, so that is incorrect. But as to whether he received invitation, I can't say, but I'll find it strange for him to have been left out. Okay. Let's go down the list. Jasper. Thank you, Jasper. Let's go to our news. Atalia Hall. Atalia, welcome.
Thank you.
All right.
I have no further questions.
Okay, great. Let's go to JCN. KL? KL.
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, I'll never make that mistake again. KL, hi.
All right, good day, Mr. Watson. With the former police commissioner, Carl speaking out about possible political interference with police management, are we expected to have any further investigation into this? Or, sorry?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you. Can you say
I
again?
apologize. With the former police commissioner, Carl speaking out about possible political interference with the previous administration with police management, is there any expectation for this to be further investigated or further indulged?
As far as further investigated, I don't see the value in it. The former administration is no longer the administration. So investigating whether they were involved at this point serves no purpose. We're trying to focus on governing the Bahamian people moving forward. We have a commissioner of police who's quite capable, who's quite able. He has been given carriage of the police force. The Prime Minister expects him, along with his team, to be able to arrest crime and get crime under control. He has full confidence of the Prime Minister. There's no need to interfere. We allow the police to do their job. All right, thank you. Let's go over to Eyewitness News. Tyler, hey Tyler.
Hi, Mr. Watson. The Bahamas National Trust has raised a few concerns because I think recently there was an American couple found in the Exuma Keys who appeared to be poaching. They had spiny lobster and that's not in season. And they also had spiny lobsters with like eggs on and what's not. But they were concerned because they were released and not charged. Is the Davis administration, concerned at all about people, foreigners coming and, poaching, rather, poaching on waters and not being charged for it?
Oh yeah, we're very concerned about that. We can say on the flip side, though, that we're happy that there has been a decrease in poaching. Prime Minister would have just spoken to the Minister responsible for Agriculture and Marine Resources, Clay Sweeting, while we were in Suriname, CARICOM, and he would have asked him how we're doing with poaching, and Minister Clay Sweeting would have confirmed that there has been a decline and a decrease in poaching, which is good. And whether that's being led because we have more vigilant people in our waters, whether we have extra security that's helping to guard our waters, but the bottom line is we have seen a decrease, which is a good thing. So we're moving in the right direction. So it is a concern. He asked about it just last week. And so we're monitoring and seeing what's happening in our waters. We want to remind the world the ocean's resources in the Bahamas reserved for the Bahamian people. and for their consumption and for their livelihood. And so that continues to be a priority for the Davis administration to ensure that those resources are harvested by Bahamians or Bahamian enterprises and not persons coming into our waters to poach. So that is and continues to remain a concern. All right. Thank you, Tyler. Eyewitness News Online. Rashad, hi.
So there's been some criticism of the fact that we've had several settlements this year, and the practice has been for there always to be a confidentiality clause, seemingly, in these agreements. And there are a lot of people who think that this isn't consistent with the actions of a government or an AG's office that wants to be transparent and accountable. Does the Prime Minister have any perspective on this?
He hasn't verbalized one. We, like you, have seen what's been happening. He's not verbalized at this point, one way or the other. Prime Minister, if you understand Prime Minister Davis, he allows agencies to operate and conduct business in what he believes will be the best interests of the Bahamian people and prudent. I would quote from what one of the ministers yesterday in the House of Assembly said when that question came up, Ms. Miles Rhoda, and he said, more importantly, it's for the protection of citizens. Could you imagine if you have a settlement and that's made public, and the mentality of some people might be to make you a target because they believe, whether you're walking around the money or not, that you have something. And sometimes it's important, particularly when you're recognizing the seasons you're in, to protect people's rights to privacy and also their safety. And when you expose that kind of information, you make people targets. Now, I have always been one who also said transparency is important. And so I think this is a good example, perhaps, of more discussion as to how do we marry both to satisfy the importance of people having transparency versus people's security being compromised. And I think transparency is important, but, the transparency is people want to know. Now, why do you want to know? Is it just because you want to be able to give an account of the people's money, or you just nosy, you want to know what someone's money they get? The purpose of it is important, right? And I think that has to be something that has to be addressed. But I do believe that if that's the way governments will go, that it ought to be said to the Bahamian people in advance so people are aware and you know why. And not just say, well, it ain't your business. No, but I think it's important because it's the people's money to be able to explain what's happening. But obviously, the government has to make a decision. I think it's a good question for the Attorney General or probably Legal Affairs to advise us on as to what's the best way forward and in that. But I do know one of the concerns has been security, because in a number of these matters, there have been issues of security. And protecting people, you don't want to make people targets. All right. Any other questions? Okay, great. Jasper, you're going to the line first. I think we want to bring on our vendors and introduce them. But before I do that, I said to you something happening tomorrow for Independence. I want to invite Dr. Ann Higgins to come and talk about it. She has been championing liturgical dance in the country. We never want to forget it's a big part of Bahamian culture. They're having a massive parade tomorrow. So I'm going to give her a couple of seconds to talk about that, and then our vendors.
Thank you so much. I'm, again, Dr. Ann Higgins, President of the World Dance Council, partners of UNESCO. And we actually have great interest when it comes to dance. And dance is one of the tools that we use to work with the children. As we know, we're getting ready to celebrate 49 years, going into 50. CID, Nassau section, will be celebrating 50 years with the Bahamas, just like we're celebrating 50 years next year. So we're starting out with a parade that we have been doing for the past 7 years. Liturgical dance parade encompasses our culture and using our children. In April, we had 300 kids out of the urban area for International Dance Day. And again, we are going back to the urban renewal centers. The children are in the community. We're going to gather another 300 children, and they will be displaying the art of culture through dance, using props, fans, umbrellas, stick dance. And they will start in Pompey Square tomorrow at 4 p.m. and they will march their way down, heading west into Rawson Square. As they get into Rawson Square, they will display their little dance, cultural Bahamian dance that they have learned for the past couple of days. And the excitement is the children. We understand that out of Mountain Babes, children, praise has been orchestrated. What a way to begin our 49th Independence celebration, was having praise in the streets through the children, praising God and giving him thanks for how far he has brought us. So this is what we'll be doing tomorrow. We're inviting parents, the public, to just come and encourage our children. These are the ones that we want to encourage to move forward in the area of the arts and in celebrating that which is their culture here in the Bahamas. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Higgins. So, of course, that's tomorrow from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m., Pompey Square to Rawson Square. A great opportunity to celebrate independence and have your kids out and a part of that. And finally, of course, we've been highlighting our Bahamian food vendors and what they've been doing. And we want to have two vendors come and talk about it and tell you what they have for you today. Reno Poisson, I think that's the way to pronounce it, rather than saying poison. Reno Poisson, not good with food. Reno Poisson from Poisson Sushi is coming to talk about his business, and he'll be followed by Kalisha Jones from The Box. Come Reno, and then Kalisha.
Hello everyone, how you doing today? Okay, here to tell you all about Poisson Sushi. I started off as a young age, working in a local restaurant, and I just took on I found the love of sushi and love of food. From then, I just never stopped it and always kept it on. I started off my own business about 6 years ago, and I must say it's going pretty good. Just for the love of food, I have a big passion for it, and sushi is one of the food areas I specialize in. Today I have for you 2 platters of various sushis that you can try. There's shrimp, lobster, conch, salmon, just a few things to tickle your taste buds. I also have some spring rolls and panko shrimp that I'm sure you guys will enjoy.
How can they reach you?
You can reach us at 825-6664. You can also find us on Instagram at Poisson Sushi, Instagram and Facebook. You can always find us.
All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Kalisha?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for inviting me here. It's indeed a great pleasure. My name is Kalisha Jones. I'm the owner of The Box Gourmet Takeout and Desserts. Okay, so let me give you a little background. Story. I've always wanted to work in the food industry, whether being a baker or being a cook or a chef. I actually wanted to do this from I was 18 years old, but I made other professional decisions to take other career routes. And the dream always came back. So during the pandemic, I had time to reevaluate, to sit down and think about what I really wanted to do career-wise. So I decided to just do my best, show my products, and take it to the next level. Now, what we offer is an array of specialty items. For example, you can find, one of the only places in the Bahamas you will find half-pound cookies. Currently, we have like 15 flavors. We also carry mini pies. We're currently at 12 flavors on the pies. So you would see unique items on our menu, like, for example, our cookie shot cups, or our various option pineapple bowls, or our pineapple cups. And the list goes on and on. But the short-term goal for this business is just to be consistent, do my best, and try to branch out a little bit. For the long-term goals, I'm interested in franchising one day, wholesaling. So if anyone has a restaurant or a business and they necessarily don't do desserts, I'm looking for a partner to work with. and catering as well. So thank you for this opportunity. Oh, where can you find me? Okay, you can find me on Facebook, on Facebook, The Box 242, or Instagram, The Box 1242.
What do we have today?
Oh, what do we have today? We have stuffed mushrooms. We have stuffed plantain cups with guacamole, mango and pineapple salsa, and a colossal shrimp at the top. We also have cookie shorts. Cookie shorts are just edible cookie glasses, short glasses made from cookie dough, so you can actually fill them with milk or any other favorite beverage and drink it and then actually eat it. So we have an array of flavors of half-pound cookies. I just bought for display the pineapple bowl, but we do have various options: seafood, chicken, etc. Yeah, and oh, don't forget to try. This world famous, almost world famous. Our guava duff cookie with our rum dipping sauce is really something spectacular. So don't forget to try it out, you guys. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. We wish all of our Bahamian vendors best, particularly during the independence. We want to take a time to wish all of you a happy independence on behalf of the press office here at the Office of the Prime Minister, and wishing you well. You know, to reach out to us for any questions, answers, or solutions you need. Our team is here to help you. Thank you all who joined in for sticking with us. We've been over time today. We'll be appreciated. Happy independence to all of you. Good afternoon. Look,